Welcome to this update. So now for the topics we have two areas for possible development. So there's this invest going over Florida now, and it's at a 10% in the next 48 hours and 20% in the next 7 days. So let's see, an elongated area of low pressure over Florida Peninsula is producing a large area of disorganized showers and thunderstorms. Although the upper level wind shear are expected to become only marginally conductive, some slow development is possible while the system moves northeast toward offshore the U.S. southeast coast tonight through late week. Regardless of development, heavy rainfalls forecast to continue across portions of Florida Peninsula during the next few days. And there's this other area. A broad area of low pressure could form over the weekend in the southwestern Gulf of Mexico. Environmental conditions appear conducive for some slow development by early next week, while the system moves slowly westward or west-northwestward. So only to a 20% chance in the next 7 days, sorry. And there's this area in the Pacific too, in the eastern Pacific. So offshore the southern coast of Mexico and Central America, a broad area of low pressure could form late this week, a couple hundred miles off the southern Mexico coast of Guatemala. Some slow development is possible this weekend and early next week, while the system meanders near the coast. 0% in the next 48 hours and 20% in the next 5 days. So let's see here some models for this. So first, the GFS. The GFS a little different today because it's actually almost developing that system of the east coast there, but only for a little while, and then it dissipates. And then it tries to develop a system near the coast of El Salvador there, but then it goes inland, and it forms this low pressure here, but by June 16th, the areas that is highlighted by the National Hurricane Center, and then kind of becomes a tropical depression or storm, but then it moves into Guatemala, and then another low pressure follows behind, but doesn't do much. But regardless of that, it continues to show drenching heavy rain in those areas of the Pacific of Central America, so please be careful there. And then by June 17th, it shows the moisture entering the Gulf of Mexico, and then maybe a low pressure forming there, and then it tries to form the low pressure, and it goes into a tropical depression or storm maybe, and goes into Mexico there. But this run, 6C, June 12th, is forming a system in the southern Caribbean there, and moving it northward, hitting Cuba and the Florida Panhandle. So this is like a week and a half out, and it's the GFS, as you all know, so take that as a grain of salt. But we better watch this system in the southwestern Gulf. So let's see the Euro here. It has the moisture leaving Florida and forming like a low pressure there in the ocean. Yeah, it shows like a tropical depression maybe or something, but then it becomes like extra tropical. But it shows a small possibility for it to form, and then it keeps the rain there in Central America in many areas, but it isn't developing anything there. So let's see. Let's put 0C June 12th because the 6C only has 90 hours. So let's see the full run here. It has a low pressure there near Mexico and Central America, but it doesn't form into a storm or anything there. But the moisture enters the Gulf of Mexico there, and it forms like a very big area of low pressure, like a tropical storm, depression, and the Euro is quite radical with this run here. It has like a big storm making landfall in Mexico there. So we all gotta watch this, but it doesn't show anything in the southern Caribbean like the GFS, so that's good. Now the Canadian, let's see here. It has the system there like almost developing near the east coast, but not very much. And then it shows the rain there in Central America, and it actually shows this low pressure, not anything tropical, but this low pressure affecting many areas of Central America there, and then moving into the Gulf of Mexico by June 18th, form like a storm there and hitting Mexico, like the same size and the same place as the Euro had too. So that's interesting. But it doesn't have anything forming on the Pacific there, like the GFS. So let's see some of these ensemble members here. So they have like a small, the GEFS is a small possibility of that system forming there near the east coast, and then it has some bigger probabilities in the southern Caribbean, some lower pressure in the East Pacific too, and then in the Gulf there with very low pressure in some areas. It even shows another low pressure curving up north layer, and this low pressure coming from the Caribbean too. So all of these are possibilities and are far out, so they take that as a grain of salt. It's not an official forecast or anything, but just so you have an idea. Let's see a different one here. So the GPS, it has like lower pressures in the southern Caribbean and more lower pressures than in the southern Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico. So this one is quite radical too. Let's see the EPS. This is the Euro, I think. So it has maybe that system trying to form on the east coast, and then some lower pressures in the East Pacific and Mexico, and then this lower pressure in the Gulf there, heading towards Mexico or near Texas. So this is basically it, I think. So we gotta keep watching these areas here, and let's see the rainfall for Florida. Today, day one is very high. Parts of western Florida, especially Tampa there, and those areas, even the northern Bahamas too. So be aware. Day 2 is a lot for Florida still. Day 3, some in Florida still and in the plains. Day 4, more in Florida and in the Midwest. Day 5, more in Louisiana, starts getting higher there. Day 6, more in the Gulf, in Mississippi and Louisiana. Day 7, more in Louisiana. So days 1 through 7 are like this, very high for some areas. Excessive rainfall outlook is a slight today in Florida and Texas, and is marginal in the Midwest, in Texas, and in Florida. Day 2 is a slight in Florida and a marginal, also the marginal in the Midwest. Day 3 a marginal in the Northeast, in parts of the plains and Florida, and a slight in Florida. Day 4 marginal in Florida, parts of the plains and Midwest. Day 5 a marginal in Louisiana, Mississippi, and southern Alabama, and this other marginal in the Midwest. So let's see the Caribbean here. So rain accumulation next 5 days. Actually, let's 12 hours first. We talked about Florida already, so it shows more in Mexico and Guatemala in some areas. Next 24 hours too in Central America, Western Cuba. Next 3 days, more in Guatemala, Mexico, Central America. Next 5 days, it shows a lot for Guatemala, southern Mexico, especially because of the low pressures crossing there. Western Nicaragua, Western Panama, Western Costa Rica, Southwestern Honduras and El Salvador, a lot too. So the GFS is like this, a lot for those areas too, and the icon is like this, also a lot. So southern South America is active too, very high spots in Venezuela, in Guyana, northeastern Brazil, western Colombia and other areas. The northeastern Caribbean, just some showers, maybe a thunderstorm, no big accumulations, and the southern Caribbean, some moisture too from the tropical waves. So this is it, stay safe.